How do you go about, because people come to me with this all the time. They want some help with some tattoos, especially the runes. I'm sure you get a whole bunch of that. How do you kind of give them what they want, but also not make up a bunch of crap, basically?
Simplify it a lot. So if somebody tells me that they want something for their mom passing away or their dad passing away, simplify that. And I've done a lot of those. I've done a lot for people who have gone through, horrible shit. People who have come back from the military and fell into a life of, drugs and alcohol, and they're coming out of that and they want something to kind of represent that. People who have lost loved ones. I simplify it. So if you was to tell me that, your dad, I would kind of interrogate you for some information on what kind of a man he was, what kind of values he instilled in you, and then I would find the runes that are, I guess, closest to those things.
Connor describes his work as an encyclopedia of Norse mythology, making it digestible and easy to understand. He also designs tattoos and artwork commissions. He started his journey by creating Viking-themed products and posts, which quickly developed into a genuine passion project. Connor emphasizes the importance of community support and reciprocity, which has led to valuable connections and opportunities. While he is not a Norse pagan himself, he delves into Norse pagan topics for his content. He simplifies the interpretation of runes and creates meaningful designs for individuals. Connor also discusses his Norse Mythology Encyclopedia project, which aims to categorize and compartmentalize every aspect of Norse mythology.
Well, maybe we can just start with you just describing yourself and your work so the audience is aware of who you are and how you like to do things.
It was difficult to describe my work. Well, I guess the title of my website is Norse Mythology Made Easy. So that's the work that I do. I'm kind of setting out to become an encyclopedia of Norse mythology and taking all of the chaos and presenting it in a way that's digestible and easy to understand, and most importantly, easy to come back to when you need it. And on top of that, I design tattoos and do artwork commissions, and I have a background in branding and sort of graphic design. So essentially, I just do fucking anything and everything. Got to get the bag out.
How did you decide to start all that? Of course, I started kind of the same way, just for fun. And then where I saw a need for a demand for stuff, either whether it be information or whether it be content or whether it be products to sell or services, like that kind of developed as it went, as I saw the demand for it. But for you, did you have a clear plan before you started of what you wanted to do?
No, so I kind of told this story when I was on the Horns of Odin podcast. I started out very disingenuously. I worked in retail for 7 years, and it kind of all started after I had a bad day. Can't remember if when I started the first God of War game it came out, but I had been playing a game called For Honor for a very long time, and For Honor has a Viking faction, and they all look really cool. And like I kind of took an interest in that, and I decided that I would supplement some of the money that I was making from my job by taking Viking symbols, you know, the Viking symbols like the Vegbrasil and whatnot, because I didn't know anything at the time, and throwing them on some products on Redbubble and just kind of trying to make some money that way. And alongside that, I started making some posts, and then it just kind of developed. I took more of an interest in it. I read Neil Gaiman's book, which was The Start, which was that got me really interested in the Norse myths. I was obviously slightly familiar with the Norse myths or, just the mythology in general from playing God of War and For Honor. And at the same time, I was doing a master's degree. So coming up to my master's dissertation, I decided, well, fuck it. I have 3 years as a graphic designer. I've been, doing this course for a year and a half now. Might as well just make my entire dissertation about this and brand it into something new and, do lots of research. It was a part-time master's, so I had a lot of time. So I spent so much time in my garden reading books on mythology and branding and runes and whatnot, smoking a shitload of weed. And from there, it just kind of developed. I just made more posts, made more products, started making more of my own designs. And it very quickly developed from something disingenuous to, oh, okay, I'm just like all the others. It's like, how about maybe I don't do that? And then it just slowly progressed. And as I started to grow more on Instagram, I started meeting more people and speaking to more people. And then it quickly became this very genuine passion project. And from there, I've just been having a fantastic time. So I thought I'd just go full in.
Yeah, I've been following you a long time, like very early stages and stuff like that, just to watch how you've grown and developed and blossomed. And again, all of that community support that you do. And you have no problem showing somebody else off because you're like, look at these people. They are awesome. Look at this art. Look at this. And how it's so intertwined together is just, it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. So. But yeah, I've seen you grow tremendously. It's been so cool.
There's no point in being selfish about the things that you do. The community page that I've been managing, I've only been doing that for a year, and I kind of started that as kind of a little experiment. Actually, it was well, we'll talk about this when we get into the Hávamál. But I was just thinking, how can I leverage the rule of reciprocity to make friends and expand my network? And I was like, fuck it, let's feature their work on my page, and let's do it in a way that's well, first of all, cheaper than every other feature page because it's free, and let's put the maximum amount of effort in. So I have this page called Einarr where I seek out different people and I feature their work on the page, and I do it in a way where there's 9 posts, which is unseen for a feature page. So each person gets 9 posts, which gives me a 3x3 square on the feed. So I get to play around with their content and see if I can make it look really nice. And then I tend to do 3 reels and then 6 carousel posts. And I'll fill those carousel posts with 10 images each. Now Instagram has moved to 20 image carousels. I'll fill them with 20 images each. And what I found very quickly from that is that it fucking works. I gained 2 new social media clients, and I manage them on I create and post on their behalf so that they can make video content and grow. And I've just met so many people who, I've done this thing for them, and I don't expect anything in return. But the way that the rule of reciprocity works, you generally get something in return. Now I just have all these people that I can ask for things and go to, and get help. And it was a crazy little experiment that has turned into something really, really, really fucking cool. And it's only a year in.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It is something I strive for myself with my own business and stuff, and something that my mentor and his wife, their 15 more year old business that I took over, they're like, you must absolutely keep this. The community support. It's always supposed to be that hub, that anchored system, where somebody can find exactly what they need, find other people that they align with and stuff. And it's something very lost in this world nowadays. Very, very lost in a world now where we're connected more than ever by the internet, by technology. We're so disconnected from one another. Interactions aren't genuine anymore. So what you're doing is a big deal.
It's really fun as well. It's not so much a plug, it's just something that came from this. I wanted to monetize it because I do put sometimes 3 to 4 hours into one of these features, which I post over a 2-week time span. And I wanted to monetize that, but I didn't want to monetize it in a way that was, well, I'm going to take your work and then I'm going to put it on my page. I'm going to get an audience from it, and then I'm going to sell my products. So I was like, just thought to myself, fuck it, let's bring them in. So I made this tattoo ebook, which I'll be printing. I wanted to do more than just the featured content. So I wanted to pay everyone. I wanted to give everyone some money. So I found a bunch of these artists, and I've paid them to design some tattoos for me. And then I put it all in a book, and then I'm going to sell that book. And of course, I think I spent like £2,600 or something on that. And you got to think that over the next 50 or 60 years, as I sell this, the return on investment for that is going to be crazy. And then at the same time, me getting money from that is not the only benefit, because the more people that I guess buy this book, everyone in it gets exposure. So it's kind of just there's nothing bad about it. There's nothing morally ambiguous about it. And everyone seems happy. And by putting money into the pockets of these people, it lifts up the reason I started it, which was to make friends. So now I have loads of these people that, see me in a high regard because I've featured all of their work entirely for free. I've worked for them and then I've paid them, as opposed to, I don't have an issue with some of the feature pages charging people, because at the end of the day, if you have a large audience, somebody wants more exposure, fair enough. But I just wanted to throw that idea away and do something completely different that seems counterintuitive. Turns out it's not.
It'd be great, since you are the designer of our logo that we're going to be running with. It'd be really cool if you gave a brief description to the audience about how you came up with that idea and what that's supposed to represent, because I think it's very close to our mantra here. I think that'd be awesome to hear.
So for new projects, I have the tattoo ebook. So I have an ebook where I gathered 250 tattoo designs by something like 36 to 37 artists, but they're much larger than flash designs. I paid them all for it. It's incredibly valuable, and it's a insane variety of like Nordic and Viking and Norse mythology tattoos. It's a good one to talk about because there isn't really a resource like that, and there isn't someone as crazy as me to make a resource like that. And the other one I would just say is the Hávamál. I've been working on this book now for 2 years. It will be coming out this year. It is every stanza interpreted by me, fully illustrated by my artist. You guys know Thor. You've been drawn as a character in the book, as have you, Christina. So, we're adding that community element to it. And then I analyze every stanza, looking for a piece of wisdom that can be extracted from modern life. So it's very much a self-improvement book. I'm just getting your logo up now. You would like me to explain the logo?
We just want to give a little idea of what your thought process was, if you have time for it.
Yeah, so I started out with the basic. I started with the rune for U, the rune for S, and I was just messing around with some different configurations, and then I thought it would be a good idea to add the M rune in there, which from what I've seen is associated with like mankind. I guess the mission statement was returning to a more, returning to that sense of community and involving, many different forms of paganism and practices. And as I started putting these things together, in my eyes, it looked like as I put this configuration together, it looked to me like somebody sitting down, relaxing, and the sun wheel just fit in there perfectly. I went with that. And when I was speaking to Christina, she kind of described this podcast as, a place to come and chill and just talk. And it's, it's nothing too vigorous. So, it all just fell in line. And then I added details in, and the two runes on the side, either side, that's the younger Futhark M rune, the same meaning as the elder Futhark one. And as I put them on either side, it just looked perfectly. It just looked perfect. And then also that particular, configuration is commonly seen in, in staves and magical symbols and whatnot. So I guess you could call it happy accident, but as I just experimented with things and, created variation after variation and just messed around, kind of stumbled upon this, and I just liked it. I thought it looked very nice.
Well, I'm curious. So are you pagan, Norse pagan? Is that something that came about when you were doing your research and developing your craft?
No, I don't really consider myself a Norse pagan. I delve into Norse pagan topics when I make content, but not for me personally, no. And I don't think I should have to be. I just take a lot of interest in the mythology and the runes and the Old Norse poetry. So no, I don't think so.
It's interesting, because you have a very vast and deep well of knowledge when it comes to the runes, and I was curious, what exactly your relationship with the runes? How do you perceive them?
I think they're really, how do I explain? From the poetry that we get, we're told that they're powerful. I don't believe that they are innately magical, but I think there's definitely something in that. Now, when because I wrote an ebook on the runes, it needs an update. It's quite old, but I wrote an ebook on them, and what I did was took as many different books on the runes that I could find, because I wanted to know what the meanings of them were, because that seems to, we don't know if that's an ancient thing. We just know that they have the names. We don't know if, one rune had 15 different meanings to it. So I read all of these books, and then I wanted to write a series of posts and then an ebook that kind of, I guess, challenges that, or at least looks at it from a more critical perspective. So I just dived into all of that and tried to write what I thought was the most sensical, I guess, meaning of each rune. And then where I'm going with that is I perceive them from the perspective of self-improvement. So when I wrote, I guess, the meaning of each one, I chose a subject, I guess, that you could attach to each one along your own self-improvement journey. And I just kind of took it from that perspective. So if the first rune, Fehu, is about wealth, I wrote about that from the perspective of, well, it's about wealth gained through hard work. So here are the things that you can do to give yourself wealth. You're not going to draw a rune and wake up tomorrow and your bank account is going to be full, but you can draw a rune and look at it every day and think, I need to make an extra post, or I need to do this project and whatnot. And then, 2, 3, 5, 10 years later, you will have some wealth.
So are you familiar with Crawford's work?
Yeah. I spent a lot of time looking through Crawford's work. I think he's incredibly intelligent, but I think that sometimes his work can be quite boring.
I was gonna say, it seems like you both come from an academic perspective.
Don't get me wrong, the man is super intelligent and he is a fucking treasure to this community. I just think that for the average person might not want to spend all of that time watching through his videos. And that might be in part due to the fact that we all have fucking TikTok brain now and we can't sit through a 10-minute video. But the content that he puts out there is absolutely fantastic. I love his work, but I think that I guess for the average person, a more simple presentation would help.
I think it's kind of funny how you've kind of accidentally kind of stumbled upon that spiritualism. Like me and you were quickly speaking before on how you don't consider this a spiritual practice. Like, you're not a really spiritual person. You're just kind of seeking help. But in at least a lot of shamanic practices, we would do exactly that. You can use runes and symbology and all that stuff to help people understand this is a way of life. This is a perspective. Like you said, with wealth. Yeah, you use this rune, it's not going to make all this money, appear in your bank account. But if you take this rune and you focus on it, you put power into it and its symbology and its meaning, you carry that around, and it's a reminder to be like, you know what, maybe I'll keep an eye out. Maybe there's another job I can pick up somewhere. Maybe there's some overtime I can do. It's a way of growing that soul side of ourselves. So you not being a Norse pagan yourself, you're almost kind of like an accidental one. Because again, you bringing in all the mythology and bringing in all the stories and all that stuff. Like I was saying, we don't really know how they practice spiritually. We don't have that stuff written down. We know what we have through the stories, and you're broadcasting it to people. You're giving people your interpretation. You're broadcasting it to people who will follow that spiritual path. The only things that we really know what people practice are things that Christianity made illegal. So, we have that. So you've kind of like morphed your way into that role without really being like saying, okay, I'm a Norse pagan. I think that's just kind of funny. I love it.
I think so. It depends, I guess, how deep you go into the paganism side of things. I kind of found my interest in the runes for artistic purposes and the mythology. There's just so much cool shit in there, especially when I have the goal to have it illustrated, because I work with an illustrator. His name is Lokia. He's been with me for 2 years now. I kind of found him because I was doing a tattoo design and I can't draw. I'm a graphic designer, so I do everything on mouse and keyboard. So I can't just put pen to paper and draw. So and I wanted an illustration for a commission. I just found him and he did it. He did it very quickly. And I was like, actually, let me get some more stuff from you because I can make some products and whatnot. And then we very quickly, because I met him on Fiverr and I risked losing my Fiverr account to give him my Instagram. Fortunately, I didn't get kicked off the platform. And I just said to him, I was like, I'm not, if we go to Instagram, I can pay you an additional 10%. I will save 10% because Fiverr takes 20% and we'll both be happy. And I think we ended up just me paying him a little bit less. And, and the return from that was, well, he's had a he's had a regular high-paying client for over 2 years, and he still has so much more work with me. So yeah, I think I don't delve too much into like the rituals and some of the pagan practices and whatnot. I will for content, because ultimately, if my audience is Norse pagans, it's my job to give them good research and good content. So whether
Okay, so
yeah,
I was gonna say, so being a non-practicing pagan, you're not invested in that, but the majority audience within that field, how does it appear? Because you have many people here, like most of us here, we're all Norse pagans, and we're all affiliated in some capacity. And your whole audience is like that. Maybe can you give us an idea of what that looks like to you, from somebody from the outside looking in at this group of people? What maybe clicks you see? What seems nice and authentic? What seems maybe role play-ish? What's it like from your perspective, seeing this group?
I think with any community, there's a lot of things which I see which make me cringe.
Yeah. Yeah, Thor had a section on that for a while.
There's a lot of those like that where most of it comes from people who have just watched Vikings, and that's their only perspective. So it's all the Scowl brother to Valhalla. But also at the same time, I think it's really interesting, just the way that people, like connect with the runes, or the way that people do these blots and these practices and whatnot. I find it really interesting. I had somebody ask me a while ago, because she asked me if I was an Norse pagan, and I said no. And you can tell she didn't want to offend me, and she wasn't, I guess, calling me disingenuous, but she asked me if I thought it was disingenuous for me to be doing all of this work and to not consider myself a Norse pagan. The answer was a hard no, because if the merit of my work is based on what I identify as, that doesn't make sense to me, because I could just say that I'm a Norse pagan on day one. My words have more weight than me, 3 years in not being a Norse pagan, but having done a lot of work and having read, having done a lot of research. So I don't see it as something that I have to be in order to do this. I find that quite interesting.
Yeah, you don't need a label. I don't understand what people feel they have to actually categorize themselves into something to have that kind of validation. If what you're doing is providing some good in this world, what you're doing is genuine, you're not throwing nonsense all out the internet and all that other kind of stuff, there's no harm in what you're doing. I don't understand. People have to feel that label. And I mean, honestly, I thought actually you were more of a spiritual person by the way your stuff is portrayed out there on the internet. The creation of this that I permanently put on my arm that you made, like you understood every aspect I wanted. Every bit of this is spiritual. Every single part. And you took the picture out of my head and put it out there. So no, I agree with you. I don't think you need to be a Norse pagan in order to understand completely everything about it.
Looks like I have runes, I have runes and tattoos on my own body, and some of those are based on different aspects of my life. So I designed, I don't know if you can see it well, but I designed this tattoo. I used the T and the U rune and a bunch of swords, and then some other runes on the outside. And I designed that as like a fighting thing, as like a warrior thing, because that's kind of, I guess, my primary form of exercise is I like the heavy bag. I have a heavy boxing bag in my garden, and I train on that. I don't go to the gym, which I really should, but I don't have the time for it. But that's kind of all of my exercise is based around hitting, So, but a lot of people have that. A lot of people have these different things that they want to connect with, and the runes are so like diverse and so versatile that you can tell almost any story using the runes. You just pick the right ones for the right reason. You can craft anything. Like it's really fun and it's really cool. And I see a lot of artistry in that. I don't think that I have to, have the label to give someone something that they can connect with just because they're a pagan and I'm not.
How do you go about, because the people come to me with this all the time. They want some help with some tattoos, especially the runes. And you're educated in it as well. You know the academic side of it. And then people come and ask, okay, what rune symbolizes my mom dying, and I like this tree in my backyard, and my dog was a fluffy puppy, and they just make up all this shit, and they expect some runes to symbolize that. And I'm sure you get a whole bunch of that. How do you kind of give them what they want, but also not make up a bunch of crap, basically.
Simplify it. Simplify it a lot. So if somebody tells me that they want something for their mom, their mom passing away or their dad passing away, simplify that. And I've done a lot of those. I've done a lot for people who have gone through, horrible shit. People who have come back from the military and fell into a life of, drugs and alcohol, and they're coming out of that and they want something to kind of represent that. People who have lost loved one. I simplify it. So if you was to tell me that, your dad died, I would kind of interrogate you for some information on what kind of a man he was, what kind of values he instilled in you, and then I would find the runes that are, I guess, closest to those things. Because the problem with the modern interpretation of the runes is, I guess what's wrong with it is also what's great about it is that we don't know if there was like 10 different meanings attached to the runes, but at the same time, it kind of is now. That's the way they're being used in the modern world, and that's the way that they'll be using going forward. So that's kind of what we have. And I've had a few people, ask me, or tell me that it's wrong and tell me that it's bad to do that. And the thing that I keep thinking of is when the elder Futhark became the younger Futhark, during that kind of transition, how many people do you think in that time were saying, no, fuck this, I'm not using the younger Futhark. This is not traditional. This is not old. Now it's something that's old and traditional to us,
Hey, Crow, can you do me a favor and just get the mic kind of further away from the speaker?
No, I'm muted.
That was you? Okay, my bad. I heard some feedback. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I stay muted unless I'm going to speak so I don't get any feedback.
Okay. All right. It shouldn't be a big deal. I was just trying to take care of that.
Yeah. So I guess just to simplify, just to make it easier, I simplify it and I kind of I ask a bunch of questions and I kind of try and find the story there. And then I work with that. Is probably how I do it. Because there's some people that will send you a message and it's like 15 fucking paragraphs. And they're like, oh, I want a bind rune made from 3 runes. And it's like, see what we can do. I try to make it as, I don't know if accurate is the right word. I try and find the best kind of runes to make something as meaningful as possible without just going overboard and
threads. You try to find the threads of the story and put them together.
Yeah, it is storytelling. It's storytelling in a kind of, it's a weird but wonderful art form.
I was just looking at that.
Joining the podcast. This is my bin dog. We rescued us. It's a wolf of Odin.
I did have one question I've just been burning to ask, and you kind of brought it up a bit when you showcased your self-created tattoo. Currently, you have a lot of people that are just always relying on these ancient symbols and ancient representations, and maybe at some capacity we look at the runes and the meaning that we apply to them now does give them that meaning that they have, because that is just the collective instillment that we have, just as much as the collective wisdom and faith that they had back then gave them that meaning. But going forward, for people who are part of the Norse pagan community and want to revive this sort of thing and bring a new era of it into the world, that's going to involve a lot of its own symbology and its own creation. How do you feel and how do you speak to people who are trying to create new spiritual symbols, new representations of faith, belief, life through the means of art and presentation?
I would say, so the art form of bind runes has become very, very prevalent in the past, I guess in the past few years. I don't know, when I started out doing this, it wasn't as big as it was now. But I would say that's what we're doing. We're kind of doing that, and this whole bind rune art form has exploded. So that is happening. There is a lot more, I guess, new symbolism coming around. Because when you go back to, well, the Viking Age and pre-Viking Age, there really isn't much in terms of symbolism that we have. We have the Valknut, which we kind of understand, but not really. We have the Thor's hammer that we do understand. Have there's a few other different symbols, but they're very, very limited. But even it's not like these cultures were writing all of this stuff down for us to understand hundreds of years later. So we're kind of, I guess, with hundreds and whatnot, we're kind of making it up as we go. And it's the same with the Viking art styles. That's something that's kind of exploding back into popularity, especially with tattoos. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one, I think. I don't see an issue with it. I don't think, because I guess the question that would be asked there is if we're not allowed to do anything with it, how do we, avoid losing it? Because if nobody's allowed to make any art or whatnot, it just goes. It's the same with my Hávamál. So Hávamál is quite an old poem, and there's a few stanzas of that poem that are quite questionable in today's world. I wrote about one of them, which is stanza 84, which is quite controversial, which is something like, I'm sorry, Christina, but in your case, it's true. I was joking.
No, don't even. No, that exploded. I was there every second for that post. I was watching everybody's comments. I loved every second of it. So go ahead.
Like, man should not trust the words of a woman, for the hearts of women are molded on wobbly wheels. And I guess, because I've created a post series on Instagram. You're about to fucking lose it. I created a post series on Instagram where I analyze these stanzas, and as I write my interpretation of the Old Norse, because I read a bunch of literal translations and then make my own interpretation. So I'm not copying someone else, but I'm still keeping part of it alive. And I wrote that as it was. And I think it was the Horns of Odin podcast where they asked me, do you plan to censor any of these? And I said no, because it's an ancient poem. If we're going to change it, we may as well just throw it away. We have to look at it for what it is, and I guess present it how it is. And then when I analyze it, that's where I kind of talk about whether I disagree with it or don't. And obviously in the case of that stanza, I don't, because I think that's a stupid way of a stupid approach to take towards one. It's there and it exists.
I've had a lot of trouble personally. I've had a lot of personal trauma with women. So like part of me is just like, maybe you might be a little right, but no.
Said in that
But your interpretation of it, though, was very good, at least on that post, because you put it as a perspective of like facing abuse from a partner, which can go both ways. So your interpretation of it and all that kind of stuff, actually, I think was very well put out there, very well done, and people are offended. They can F off. Like, it's stupid.
I'm honest. Based on what I wrote, there's no you can't really look at what I wrote. If you read the post description, you can't really look at that and try to say that I did anything wrong, because I straight up disagreed with it. And my advice was to, I guess, find the patterns of women who aren't great, who are just going to bring you misery, and avoid them. Avoid the bad ones, but don't see everyone as bad. And I said the same thing, because that was essentially the women ain't shit stanza. And I said the same thing, 10 later in the men ain't shit stanza. It's like, learn to recognize patterns of, I guess, untrustworthy men, and then avoid them. They don't deserve your time or attention. But to
being shitty isn't like a gendered quality. It can happen with anybody.
People are everywhere. Yeah. Across every gender, across every, race and ethnicity, they're everywhere. So if you can just spot the patterns of them and avoid them, I think that's a much better approach than yes, men saying all women ain't shit and women saying all men ain't shit. It's just not a good outlook to have. I don't think.
Is there a maybe we can get something? Is there like a favorite one that you on your website from the Hávamál or any of your work they have on the website that you really loved working on? Something that we can maybe bring up and you can talk about?
I could spend 10 hours here talking about the Hávamál. But I think as something general, maybe the Norse Mythology Encyclopedia is a project I started on my website, which I knew it was going to do quite well because I made an eBook, but I didn't think it was going to be, or I guess I was surprised at how valuable it has turned out to be for people. So it's not finished, and there's already a lot of content in there, but I've set out to, I guess, categorize and compartmentalize every aspect of Norse mythology that I could. And you have it on the screen now, you could see it here. So I broke it down into sections, and then within each of those sections is a list of, names of people and beasts and things and giants and, mythological items. And so I've just tried to kind of put all of that in one place and categorize it, because Norse mythology is fucking confusing. And a well-presented encyclopedia is the solution to it being confusing. It was also a fun creative project. So what you see on the website is is all the information. And then what I did is in the book, I made sure, I think there's around 250 names in there currently. And in the book, I took all of those names, I wrote them in Younger Futhar from their original Old Norse names. And then I made a little bind rune stave. So I wrote the name vertically using runes, and I just put that out there as something that people could tattoo, kind of do what they want within reason. So it was a fun little creative project, and it kind of serves a multitude of purposes. And I still use it to this day. If I need to write about something in the Norse myths, or a particular story or a particular character, I go find my Norse mythology encyclopedia. I don't have to remember it all. So it was quite a fun project, and quite a valuable resource too, I think, even just for myself.
Very cool. How long have you been working on this particular project? Because you said it's still ongoing too.
The first version of the ebook I released took about 6 months to make. And the final intention is to make a hardcover book with some illustrations for my artist. So I've been working on it. Yes, I work on so many different things. So when I say working on it, I don't mean like every day I'm doing it.
Yeah, I understand.
For about a year now. I updated the website a few days ago with everything that's going into the next updates. There's so many different poems and so many different locations of these poems, and you have the main two, which are the poetic and prose edda, but there's all these like skaldic stories and whatnot. So finding the one thing you need can be so like confusing. Whereas, and especially if people are coming to me and asking questions, I was having someone come to me and in my DMs and ask me a question about a certain god, and I would have to go to Wikipedia and then go to somewhere else and then find the poem and read it. Now I just pull up that ebook, Command F, type the name in, send a screenshot of the page. So much easier.
Are you going to be continuing the project, say, with doing it with the sagas as well, or are you just going to be sticking to the poetry in general?
As much as I can find, anything and everything. So at some point I'll add a bunch of the different heroes and things from there, relevant people from their stories. But I don't know yet how far I will go. Don't think I'll go and find the most obscure characters from the most obscure poems, but certainly all of the main stuff. So I'll go through the story of Ragnar and take all of the important character names and talk about them, and then I'll find some of the other poems. But I think so. I guess the challenge that I have there is if I could just get myself a list of every Norse poem that we have. Yeah, then I
Good luck.
Then yeah. That's the difficult part. Then I would do everything.
Skaldicdatabase.org. You might have been to that website, but you couldn't read that if you read all day, every day for 5 years. You couldn't read through everything you have on there. It's so much.
I didn't know about that.
Database.org. I've just typed it in. It's nothing but nothing.
Let's see.
Or Skaldic. Yeah, what's the
Skaldic project?
Skaldic.org, yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
That's it. That's basically every piece of literature we have in Old Norse, archaeological finds, poems, sagas, everything, and it's that will keep you occupied for life if you start digging into that. But you got to filter through the most relevant ones, the ones that people know. That's maybe doable.
That's probably what I would do, yeah. Oh my god, yeah, there's so much. I didn't have this when I made the Norse Mythology Encyclopedia. You have just done me a huge favor.
So that's a huge project, both on your website and your books, especially the website, that there must have been so much work put into that. Is it like completely due to just interest and wanting to give people a place where they can read that stuff organized? Of course, you use it for marketing as well. You sell your ebooks and promote your other stuff through that website as well. But how much of it was basically, where do you draw the line between I'm doing this because I like it and I'm doing this to generate traffic for the website? When do you call it, okay, enough is enough. I've worked too long on that. I'm tired of it now.
Well, so it's an interesting question. It's one of my major projects, I would say. So there is no line. I will be building this business and, being the fucking Norse mythology guy for my entire life. So I might as well get pretty damn good at it. I might as well do everything that I can. And it also, I kind of want to know everything myself. Somebody sent me a message, I think it was earlier today. He joked about, everything that I'm doing. He joked about me being head of Mimir, and now I'm starting to think that maybe I will be the fucking head of Mimir for Norse mythology. I will. I enjoy it. I find a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction in doing that because of how hard it is to find everything. So I'm happy to put all of the time and work in. And I think, at least from a business perspective, I've been, making ebooks and different projects for a while now. I'm not struggling financially as I was when I was in retail. So I guess chasing money, it's still there, but it's not out of necessity. It's more out of making a better life for myself. But this is the path to it. People seem to think that the way to make more money is to just push products constantly. It's not. Good content is far better for making money than good products. And that's why I mentioned that I'm not gonna. I think I mentioned before the start of this podcast that some of the information on the encyclopedia isn't what's in the ebook right now. So I started out by, because again, it's a massive project for one person to take on. I started out by gathering all the names, making them into lists, and then just to get something on paper, I had ChatGPT generate a short synopsis of each person, which I then went and rewrote. So some of the stuff that's on there is still from that ChatGPT synopsis. But as of, I think, this Tuesday coming up, I'm taking all of the content within the ebook and putting it onto the website. Some people might see this as counterintuitive because, well, what's the point of buying the ebook when you can just go to the website and find it? And my answer to that is still sells, So I'm fine with it. I think at the same time, the appreciation that someone will get from reading that is enough to make them want to, put their money behind what I'm doing and support me. And I've had people message me that tell me that, that they just love the work I'm doing and that they're more than happy to buy something that I'm making because it helps. And there's so much out there for free. So I guess there is no line. We'll find everything within reason. And I do it because I really enjoy doing it.
So through all this research that you do, does it, or have you experienced any type of change in perception when it comes to the world or history or anything in that category, having not maybe known these things, then once they start coming into your life, do you get a different perception on life and spirituality, perhaps?
Definitely life, especially with the Hávamál. There's so much shit that we say nowadays that is just, like timeless sayings. Like, for example, the early bird gets the worm. That's in Hávamál. And, my illustrator is Christian, and there's reference to that in the Bible as well. So it's really cool to see how ununique it is, so to say, and how it's pretty. Some of these timeless wisdoms are pretty consistent, thousands of years back, and that there's especially the fact that I guess in modern times we have so quickly evolved with our technology, but there is still so much relevance in sayings that are 1,000 years old. So yeah, I think it's really interesting to see, just how much of this can be taken at face value and still applied to our lives today. And yet the people that wrote them 1,000 years ago, their lives were nothing like ours.
So you're not a spiritual person, or are you a spiritual person? Maybe you're not Norse pagan, but are you spiritual in some capacity?
So can you define what you mean by spirit?
I guess that there's some sort of consciousness in a metaphysical realm, like that you have some sort of connectedness through other means or more, I don't know, maybe woo-woo, kind of hard to define, of either connecting with the earth or with other people or with greater forces. Is there some type of spirituality that has an impact that you use to impact the world, and then the world also impacts you with? Is there some medium that you communicate with the greater elements of existence through?
It's a difficult question to answer. I'm not entirely too sure. I don't really understand what you mean by medium, but I would say the earth, definitely. I mean, we all came from it, we're part of it, and we don't, I guess in terms of my outlook on life is that we were kind of we just spawned in here and we don't know why we're here. It's like if you was to just load up an RPG game and the objective is there is no objective. It's like you're just here, don't die, optional.
GTA Valhalla, right?
Yeah. We're just here, and it's, we're in this very, I mean, not so much nowadays because we have all this technology and infrastructure and whatnot. But we're in this very hostile place with absolutely no objective other than, don't die, make some money. So I don't know. I guess I don't know if you would consider it very spiritual, but I guess my outlook on life is quite selfish. I don't know why I'm here. Don't know what my purpose is supposed to be. So I'm just going to try and make it as happy and comfortable as possible. And the way that I've I guess the path that I've found to that just happens to involve, making other people's lives easier and bringing joy to other people.
You're a creator.
I think, I guess there's a big thing when it comes to people, because I guess we're in this weird position in modern times where we're connected with, everyone all over the world. But it's a difficult.
Sorry, I might have lobbed a big, vague question at you.
Yeah. It's definitely a big, vague question. I guess where I'm going with that is kind of along the lines of, community. The whole community thing is kind of broken down from what it was 1,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, whatever. When we lived in kind of small tribes and knew everyone, we now don't know everyone. So I guess for me, it's about finding a community, which I kind of have done. And it just so happens to be that, people in my community might be 200,000 miles away or 20,000 miles away. Well, what do I say? I don't know every single person in my neighborhood or two neighborhoods down, which I guess back in olden times I would have. I've kind of found it through my work, and I've found, people who enjoy things that I enjoy. And then for me, it's just, if I bring value to them and, if I bring things to them, then they will bring things to me that will make my life better. Yeah, it's quite a very, I guess, difficult, vague question to answer, but spirituality kind of confuses me, the concept of it and like what it is. And even I tried to Google it earlier today, and it was just as vague. I got an answer like, many people define it differently. And it's like, maybe I'll get the dictionary up.
I feel like spirituality is it's a hard question for everybody. So don't feel like, you're kind of on your own as far as that goes.
I was just yapping for the past 5 minutes.
I try to sum it up and helping people understand. It's like, what makes like your weird little heart sing? Like what is the things that you're aligning with that make the soul part of us, which we all forget about in modern day? What makes it feel like it's sparked? What makes it feel like it's on fire? And that looks different for every single person. You could very much be aligning your soul self with the work you're putting out there, especially with connections with people and all that stuff. With the Moon A Key stuff that I teach, it's all about our community connections. You have access to all of that, Connor, so I think you should go look at it.
I think what you said makes the question easier to answer. So I guess how I would answer that is, when I create a design for someone who has, just lost one of their loved ones, or to give you an example, a father who has lost his, infant child, and he, and he commissions me and he pays me to make something for him, and I do that, and it makes his life a little bit better. It gives him, a bit of hope and something to hold on to. That to me feels a lot more genuine and heartwarming than stacking a fucking shelf for minimum wage for a corporation that does not give a fuck about me, So I worked in retail for 7 years, and it was completely soulless. I think by the end of it, I had basically given up. And there was many times where some of my team leaders or managers would come to me and say, you're young, you could be working so much harder than you are. And my response would be, okay, let's go into the office. Let's talk about my pay. You pay me more, I work harder. It's like, oh no, sorry, we don't control that. The company controls that. And it's like, all right, okay. Company's paying the person that's working 10th of what I work the same amount. So it's like, and you're asking me to give a fuck. Whereas when I get paid by an individual who, pays me very well to do what I do, first of all, it's more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more rewarding financially. And second of all, it's coming from one person, not from an unknown fucking member of, HR for whatever company. So I much prefer working with individual people or with small businesses. And that's kind of what I've stumbled on with this, which is why I take on so many, so many commission artworks.
You're looking for that raw connection. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. And even if the person's on the other side of the planet, I can still have that, and they can still have
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would also say that you didn't find your tribe. I don't agree with that. And this is just my analysis. You created it.
But they found me through the content I make.
Yeah. Well, you had to come a place for them to come to do that and whatnot. You created the village, if you will, that allowed them to come to that space.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's nice to wake up, I guess, every morning, and because I wake up every morning and I go sit in the garden for a little bit, and I wake up to like 20 different messages. And some of those might be from people that I'm actively working with. Maybe they're, giving me an update on a project, they're responding to my update on a project. Some may be random new people that I haven't met, that I haven't spoken to before, that are asking me to do a project. Sometimes I wake up and there's just a nice message. Somebody will just message me and say, "Oh, I love the work that you're doing. Thank you," and then they'll never respond. But it's nice to see. I think when I worked in retail, there was very rarely, a person that would just come in and just be very nice to you for no reason. Whereas that's kind of become the baseline of my job now. There's a lot more appreciation for what I do, so it's a lot more fulfilling, I would say.
Yeah, it is very heartless in retail. I can tell you that. I did the same thing. And it's a standard now. People treat each other with so much anger and hate and all that kind of stuff right off the bat. And kindness is something that, and I say kindness in the sense of, understanding one another and being kind, not necessarily being like, becoming a doormat, stuff like that. But, because you still need to protect yourself and all that kind of stuff. However, kindness, just be a total asshole. Kindness is something so like people don't get now. Like people question me, they'll ask like, why are you so kind? Like, why are you so willing to share this information? Why are you so willing to help? All that. Be like, it's the connection. It's something that's lost nowadays. And you've created that space, like Nathaniel was saying, where people can come, feel like, they can get a ton of information. There's artwork being shared. There's other people involved, all this kind of space. You created an environment of connection and kindness, in a world out there where everybody's so full of hate. But yeah, in retail, I could say people would even over the phone. I worked at a copy dealership. I would be the person you call when your copier broke, but they would call me like I went over there and literally kicked their machine. And it's like, all right, you want to treat me like shit? You realize I'm in charge of 17 guys and one of them's going to come out to you. It's necessarily going to be a priority at this moment. I've had people totally belittle me over somebody was like, they had to get their machine fixed and this and that, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to make sure, you're a really high priority. I said, however, there is a doctor, there is a heart surgeon ahead of you and they have to go first. And just people are nasty, up with no care whatsoever. They didn't care that a heart surgeon needed their stuff fixed.
I had a bit of a reputation in my store because I was an asshole to anyone who was an asshole to me. Like I was very nice to people, but the moment somebody spoke out of line, the fact that I had a uniform on meant nothing to me. Like I was quite a prideful bastard as well. So I would get fired from a job to protect my pride, and I wouldn't let anybody speak down to me. Told like middle-aged Karens just fuck because they started yapping in my face. And I realized through COVID that they wasn't really in a position to fire me. So I would say I got a lot worse during COVID, and then I kind of gained a reputation as, oh, don't fuck with that one. She doesn't take it very well. But I don't get any of that now. I don't get any of that. I've had the odd person try and say that what I'm doing is cultural appropriation, or the odd person try and say it's disingenuous, and I don't care. You can say that. It's not,
So you work pretty close with Northern Black, don't you?
Not anymore. I did. I was their social media manager for a year and a half. I think I started working on 3 of their accounts. I managed Northern Black Oak at the time, which is now Esau's main account, and I managed Northling Art, which was their feature page, which became the Nordic Tattoo, which is still their feature page. So, and then I think 3 or 4 months before I stopped working with them, I managed their TikTok and I think Facebook page too. But yeah, so I'm very familiar with them.
I was going to say I had a fun interaction one time with them. I won't go into detail about it, but
Come on, you don't have to put it in the episode, but I want to know.
well, I think something was getting.
Worms, come on.
Just do it.
Something he was being promoting a book or something like that, and I said something on Instagram about an item that was being sold in their shop or something like that, and I was just like, I don't think this is legit. And then, he was just like, he just tore into me, called me a twit and stuff.
Which item was it?
It was, I don't know. I can't find it. It was something I was just talking about. And I was just like, I don't know if that's sourcefully accurate or like, I was just kind of like, maybe he's very against people. Like he's very into the idea of how people get tattoos and like what type of tattoos they get. And that's kind of like a whole part of his brand. So I think I might've just been a bit of contrarian in that sense. And that was then like immediately right afterwards just responded to me. It was just like, you're stupid. I'm a Norse pagan. You're dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a few things like that. And when they did the whole "you're not a fucking Viking" thing, there was a lot of comments like that. And it's funny because, and again, we won't put this in because I do still have a lot of love for them. I can see why some people don't like them, and I can see why some people don't like some of their products that they put out. But the thing with the "you're not a fucking Viking" is we just put the post up as a joke, and it did really well. And like anyone does in business, we were like, do that again, make more money. And I think that the joke kind of ran its course, but the amount of people that thought he was being serious, thought it was.
Well, there's a truth to it. There's a truth to it because one of the things that comes down to that's the thing. It's there are a lot of people who we talk about. Like we did talk about. There's cringe pagans and there's people who are role playing and they're dressing up as video game characters. And one of your posts actually that is just so funny to me because it's when everybody gets Travis Fimmel's face tattooed on them. The gentleman that played Ragnar. Thing is, I hung out with Travis Fimmel. We were in Australia in his hometown. We had like 12 beers together. Dude drinks like a Viking, sure does. But it's so funny to have seen the actual dude and just hung out with him. Realize he's not Ragnar, right? I mean, he really did make the character. He was a great actor, did a great job performing the role. But it is hilarious to see tattoos with that dude's face. And like, that's the kind of stuff, that I'm just like, man, that can get out of here pretty quickly.
I made a few posts now, and they do predictably well because it's just bait where I write something like "stop getting shit Viking tattoos," and people will kick off at me. I think the first one that sparked that was I put a Vegvasir on a post, and I was like, "This is not a fucking Viking compass," and the shit kicked off, man. And I think a few weeks later, I was like, "I'm gonna do it again." I grew quite well from that. So I did it, and then there's, I don't know if you're familiar with the manga Berserk. There's the fucking brand of sacrifice from Berserk, which because the manga is called Berserk, and there's a symbol, it's kind of just become this Viking berserker thing. I put a post up about that. Predictably, it did very fucking well. So I just kind of went on this thing where I did the Vegvasir, the brand of sacrifice. I did the fucking Hávamál, and I think I did a few others as well. I think I did the what's it called? Fucking 3 lines, and then there's more lines. The web of word. I did that.
Weird.
Yeah. And people don't like being told that their tattoo is wrong. And the funny thing about that is that I got a Vegvasir tattooed when I was like 22 after finding it on Pinterest, and it said Viking compass. So like, I'm the fucking idiot that I'm pointing. People tell me that I'm like taking the piss out of people, and I'm like, yeah, and me, like, I did it. It's like I made the mistake, and I feel stupid for it. And some people tell me like, well, what if I want to get the Vegvasir tattoo? What if I connect with it? It's like, okay, cool, yeah, get it. I don't care. It still looks really nice. You can have it. But like, there are people out there who got it, and then later they realize that it's not a Viking compass, and then they'll try and sleep at night, or they'll be in the shower, and they're like, I told that guy the other day that I had a Viking compass, and now that's what he thinks of me. So
it is a pretty great way when you're in the community. It's a really clear and obvious way to, it's our rainbow flag, in a way.
I remember where I think I was at a gig. I think I was going to see it might have been 50 Cent. I've been to a few different gigs, and I saw a guy with the Vegvasir on his elbow, and as I walked past him, I was like, "Scowl, brother, till Valhalla." Like,
yeah, Yeah, I got in a car accident recently. I accidentally bumped this guy, and we pull off to the side and we're doing the exchange and all that kind of stuff. And then at the end of it, it's all very nice, and shake his hand, and then out comes his forearm, and I see the Beg Vizier on there, and I was just like, "You know Svega?" And then we go on about it.
Now I ask if it's Viking compass, and I just see what they say. And if they
Yeah.
say yes, I'm just like, yeah, man, Viking compass, that's my favorite. And I just leave.
It's amazing how we end up kind of detecting one another. I actually had an incident like that happen. It was at a historic village. They were running like a festival and stuff. It was a rubber duck festival, which was hilarious. They literally sent a bunch of rubber ducks down a river and raced them. Like, the kids absolutely loved it, but the whole village gets involved. There's like fire eaters and you name it, they go big. There was a bubble magician there. And he's actually become a very good friend of mine because as he's entertaining the children, I see an armband on him. And we're like, we both like kind of made eye contact. We're just like looking at him like, he's like, we do this. And then we met up afterwards and we've been chatting ever since. And it's been like 2 years. And he actually does like, he does funny things. He does like, he also teaches like spirituality, adult self-help and all that other kind of stuff. But he does it through magic. It's really hard to explain. It's really funny, but it's like the act of illusion and making you realize that is a life lesson. And it hits you hard. But, I was saying with the point, it's funny how we can like identify one another. And whether it's a Vegisphere tattoo or something of that sort, but it was the armbands.
The point about the Vegisphere tattoo being like our pride flag, that's fucking old. It's like, it's kind of like the, I guess you could say like fashion and, the way that Norse pagans present themselves. Because if you see a guy with like a, I guess, like a hairstyle like mine and like a long beard, and you're going to walk over to him and ask him if he's seen Vikings. He said, yeah, he's going to say yes. Like, you could spot him a mile away.
Yeah, my husband gets that a lot because he's got the same haircut as you, Connor, but he's got a long beard going on. And you look at him and he's blonde and, he looks the epitome of it. And he's like not really into it too much. Like, he's kind of warming up with spirituality. He's very much agnostic to where it's like, I know there's something out there, and he does do a lot of nature things and stuff. Just doesn't know what it is. But people go to him all the time, and they're shocked actually by his answer. He's like, no, he points to me, and they see this. And they're like, you're the one? Like, yes, the mostly Mediterranean. Yes, I'm the one.
It's always very difficult because, like you were talking about, you see people in places and you want to go talk to them. And like, it's always a dude. So it's like me having to approach another dude. And I'm just like, okay. Don't make it gay. Don't make it gay. It's just Norse paganism, man. Don't make it gay.
Girlfriend, I guess.
Hey, bro, you a pagan?
See, I have no problems, so I have no shame as far as anything like that goes. I will just write up to somebody and be like, hey, like, I have no shame whatsoever. I look like an idiot, whatever. It's funny, at least.
I think my girlfriend refers to it as orange cat energy. It's just, maybe it's the ADHD in me. But if I see someone with a Vegisphere tattoo, I'm like, hey, bro, you Viking, bro? And I'll just start yapping out in public. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, I'll just ask people random shit all the time. Or like, I'll be walking down the street and I'll just see something and just compliment someone, and even the most random shit. Because it makes me laugh and I find it funny. And I just know that this person is walking away like confused as shit. There was an old lady, we were coming back from shopping, and there was an old lady walking down the street, and she came up to me and she was like, oh, is it busy in there? And I was like, yeah, it's about 37% full. She was like, okay. And I looked at the clock and I was like, oh, it's a wonderful time for shopping on a Saturday, isn't it? And she looked at me and was like, yeah. And she just walks away and you just know she's so confused. My girlfriend's looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing? What? Funny? Say this random shit to these random people.
Well, it's interesting when you come across pagan. I guess you probably deal with this or maybe you don't deal with it. You're on the other end of it, but it's just, I'll meet people and they're just not as into it as I am. Like, I'll walk up and be like, oh, okay. So like, have you read this? Have you read that? Have you read this? And they're like, no, Vikings was cool. And that was it. That's it. Which I guess you're on the other end of it because you have all these people coming to you and be like, did you know that this word actually means celestial power? And it's just like, doesn't always really need to be that deep. It's content, and
if
the way I see it,
I'll pick on the base. I'll ask them if they've played God of War because we could talk about that. I'm not gonna ask them if they did a blot on this specific day or something, something really obscure. I'll be like, "You play God of War?" "Yeah." "All right."
And that is part of the issue. I think is that you get a lot of people who try to like, I'm not sure if it's the right word, but like deify this whole practice. They try to make it this very organized. Um, I don't know. I don't know. They try to make it like an organization in a way. They try to make it not this.
We don't.
What's that?
Well, it's not like for Norse pagans. We don't have a Bible. We don't have a Quran. We don't have any of them. We don't have a solid book of of rules and teachings. We have scattered bits of texts and mythology here and there, and we're just kind of left to just fucking figure it out. And even the texts that we do have were written like 200 years after they were spoken orally, you know, by the descendants of those people who are now Christian. So it's like we don't have the best information. We don't have a book that's been written and then rewritten, and then and it's just kept on being kept on. It's been kept alive properly, so to say. There was like a 200 gap, and then some chieftain was like, "Let me write this down."
I feel like that there's a difference too between trying to understand spiritual practice, trying to put it back together, and then people, like you said, Rodas, trying to make it organized, trying to make it like an organized religion. A lot of times, especially people that clients and stuff come to me, I can tell you pretty much 99% of the time they've broken away from some kind of organized religion. And then what they do with a Norse spiritual or any kind of practice, any kind of pagan practice, they try to replace what they had in the organized religion with some other symbology. Like, I can't tell you how many times somebody has come up to me and been like, "Oh, do you just replace Odin as God?" And I'm like, no, that is not how that works. I mean, I know that it's, yes, sometimes an easier transition from people going from a certain way of life to another. But it's like, no, we need to break out of this. So I feel like it's counterproductive if you are trying to turn spiritual practice that is also very nature-based, because it is old, trying to turn it into an organized religion is just counterproductive. It's ruining what you broke away from.
Yeah, yeah. What you were saying about replacing God with Odin. One thing I do quite like. I know there are many people who have like a hate for God. What I do quite like is that the gods are very human. They're just as shitty and corrupted as we are, especially Odin. Odin is not a nice person at all. He's not a great role model. He's not a great god. But I find that more interesting, especially, with Norse mythology and for what limited knowledge I have on Egyptian mythology, which is essentially, from my understanding, just a bunch of crackheads fighting over a lighter. But I like that they're a lot more human, and the stories that they're involved in, we can connect with. I have a lot of people that, I guess you could say that they spiritually connect with Tia. And I still think there's something in that, because self-sacrifice was kind of his entire story arc. It was giving its hand to Fenrir so that the gods could be safe, even though, he's destined to come back. But I still think there's something good that we can take from that. There's a sense of courage and duty in that. So, yeah, I guess bringing it back to the whole self-improvement thing, that's why I like the Norse myths, because they characteristics of the gods are characteristics that we have. They're not like holier than us, or they're not better than us. So there's a lot that we can learn from their stories, and of course they were written by people, so that's where all that comes from.
How is it, do you think? That's a good question. So you got into it, but you started out by like God of War, but there was the Greek God of War before, like 10 years before that. I don't know if you're old enough to do that. Why do you think it was the Norse that attracted you to that? Because all the mythologies are rich. The Greek, the Roman, the Egyptian, you know a little bit about it. So you have Norse mythology, the gods sounded a little bit more human, or was it maybe because of your ancestry that it was the religion of the Anglo-Saxons too, if we go back far enough? What do you think it was about the Norse that made you want to really dive deep into that?
Part of it is aesthetics. Vikings look cool, man. Like, especially when they're presented in a fantasy setting, that shit looks really cool. And you've just got like the realms and the different stories. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. As I said, another game I was playing at the time was For Honor, and that's very much the kind of cosplay-y fantasy side of the Vikings. But even then, big fucking dudes with axes. It was just really cool And then I just kind of started looking into the symbols when I was, putting them on products for Redbubble. And the interest just kind of sparked from there. And then I started learning about some of the different gods and their stories, like Loki. Loki's really cool. I found him really interesting because he's just a degenerate lunatic. And it just kind of went from there. So maybe it was a game, maybe it was Neil Gaiman's book, maybe it was the aesthetic, maybe it was the more cosplay fantasy aesthetic, or maybe it was a combination of all of those things. And I guess the runes themselves are quite cool, quite interesting to read into and whatnot. So I couldn't give you a pinpoint answer.
Well, it's interesting because it seems like, because it's coming so back in fashion, because it really does have a very masculine air to it, right? But it's actually a lot of positive masculinity in it, because it was a culture, one of the first cultures to actually allow divorce, a lot of value in the female archetype. So it's like a really good masculinity that I think is trying to return, because right now we have a governmental system, a global governmental system that's doing everything it can to displace families and destroy masculinity, positive masculinity, and create a lot of distrust among people, where you look at these cultures, the way in which they succeeded and they were become some of the most powerful military forces and successful societies and richest societies, is because they had this cohesion with each other. And it's probably something that our society is desperately feeling a call for again, this competent communal access, and this ability to work together and still have a masculine nature.
Yeah. I think that when you start, I guess, destroying masculinity, you'll start, vilifying it or trying to get rid of it. That's not going to be good for any society's future. You need strong men. Men need to be strong, because when you have weak emotional men, that's not good for anyone. You want men to be stoic and strong and capable. And I just think that I guess making us feel like shit for being men, or vilifying us for being men, is not very good in the slightest. Now, as I said before, I have a boxing bag in my garden. I train all of the time to be someone who is dangerous, yet also, disciplined. So I used to have a roommate who was not very disciplined and quite weak. And when he walks the streets, he had his head down in his phone, and you're just a target. When I walk the streets, I have my head up. I look at everyone, not at everyone. And if something was to happen, somebody was to, put me and my girlfriend, or me and my girlfriend and my dog in a situation, well, I'm incapable of handling that. And I think that it's not good to have men that can't. And at the same time, men that are strong and capable are a lot more likely to stand up to, the shit men, because, well, keep the shitheads in line. You need strong men, you need those of us that are willing to stand up and do something. So if we see, if we're at a club or whatnot, if we see a man trying to touch a woman, it's our responsibility to give him a fucking ticket for it, and, teach him that it's not okay. So yeah, I think I agree with you.
I think an awesome example is Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. This guy could kick everybody's ass, but dude he loved a woman, so much, and he wrote poetry. He deeply felt himself. He was moved to tears. I mean, and you see this happen in Norse culture all the time. I mean, you have the warrior poets, you have kennings, you have this culture that surrounded artistic creativity, artists, and things that you embody these days as well. You're talking about your strength as a man, but you're also a creator, someone who has that ability to see detail and, sort of be a creative. Being a masculine individual doesn't mean having no access to emotion, or not having any creativity, just being a stone brick wall. It means quite a lot, to be able to explore all the facets of what it means to be an individual and a man.
Yeah, I can. Sorry, well, I was going to say, from a woman's perspective, I can say that weak men scare me. Weak men, I feel like, are going to be the ones that would attack me. Weak men, my coach put this in a very good perspective, Soren. He said, men are supposed to be, the masculine is supposed to be our protectors, are supposed to be strength, are supposed to be fortitude. So women can be chaos, because in chaos comes creativity. comes life, comes all this kind of stuff. We're meant to be, we're wackadoo. We're meant to be chaotic because beautiful things come out of it. We can't do that if we're not safe. And like I said, I honestly feel more vulnerable being around what women call golden retriever men. And I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody out there, but I don't care. To where they're just soft and calm and happy. I'm 5 foot, 100 pounds. I cannot rely on somebody like that to protect me if something like that happens. Yes, there are women out there like, yeah, you could protect yourself. No, we're built differently. I don't care how much people try and blend things together. We're built differently for a reason because we complement one another. However, I feel safer in an environment where I actually went to my kids, the karate school that they go to. The owner holds this massive expo every single year where the whole society that he's part of, they come every year and they come from New Zealand. They come from Mexico, everywhere. They come and they meet, and these guys are like 8th, 9th Dan black belts, and stuff, like terrifying. Like these people could just kill me in seconds and I have no idea. Like literally that. But I felt safe there. I felt good there. I wasn't worried that these men were going to force themselves on me or anything of that sort because, again, they have the capability of they can just take me out in seconds, but don't, because there's a strength in that. You're reserved, and also having like my husband with me during that, he wasn't intimidated or saw it as competition or anything of that sort because he's a confident man, that hey, these are just one of my people. And if shit goes down, we know we're okay.
I think what you're talking about goes back to that verse at the Hávamál about women and not trusting them. And it's not about not trusting the women. It's about the fact that because of the bundle of chaos that you are and whatnot, when you have strong men with it, that the words that they say one moment might be how they feel in that particular moment. But it doesn't necessarily have to do with like the overall truth of the entire arc of the relationship or whatever that is that they're having with this particular one with it. And so to make it so that way men don't take it too seriously also could be a way of interpreting this particular line and whatnot, realizing that, hey, they're going to be more emotional in general and whatnot, and that it's our job as a man to be able to put up with that and to make it so that we can stay strong and not allow that to phase us one way or another and whatnot. I think that's a big part of another potential interpretation of that particular line that Connor brought up at the beginning when he was going into Hávamál and whatnot. I'm not saying it's the only way you can interpret it and whatnot, but it's just another potential one.
I think going back to what you were saying, Christina, about being in that room with all those guys that are, they were 9th Dans and whatnot, what you will find is that if a disagreement or a conflict arises between, hypothetical situation, two men that both know how to fight, two men that don't know how to fight, conflict arises, what you'll find is the majority of the time, two men that know how to fight won't fight. The two men that don't will, because when you know, I put a lot of emphasis on fact that I think that all men should know how to fight because less of us would. And also, there's 5 of us in here. We're very simple creatures, especially when it comes to relationships. We're egotistical. We want to feel respected. And I think that if you're not strong, you won't get that. It's something I put a lot of emphasis on. I think all men should know how to fight because in a situation where when you're put into a situation of unavoidable conflict, you need to know that, you can either settle the situation with your words, or if not the case, you can settle the situation with your hands. There was a situation not too long ago where, just for context, I'd been bitten in my face by 2 dogs and I'd been attacked by a third that didn't bite me. So aggressive dogs, I'm very aggressive towards aggressive dogs. And me and my partner were walking in the country hills near me where I live, and we got to the top of the hill and a German Shepherd came running at us. The hair on its back was stood up, its ears were back, it was growling, it was barking, and immediately I gave her the lead. I'm in front of this dog, stomping and shouting at it. She knows that she's protected, telling the owner to get the dog on his lead, and he's just some old fat guy on his phone And I just said to him, I was like, I'm going to fuck your dog up. And he was like, oh, you ain't going to do nothing to the dog. And I was like, I'm going to fuck your dog up. It's like, get your dog on the lead. And he came back to us. I was going to do something. Unfortunately, the dog ran. And when we walked away, I didn't understand because, I had a lot of adrenaline. I was preparing myself to beat the shit out of this guy with his dog. And when we walked away, my girlfriend was telling me that he was not comfortable with that. He would not look at me in the eye. Like I was staring him down, because to me, this was a potential fight. He did not want any of that. So in that situation, if I didn't know how to fight, I don't think I would have had the confidence to be as aggressive as I was. And in which case, I could have got bitten. My dog could have got bitten, and my girlfriend could have got bitten. Now, if the situation went to a point where that dog did bite my dog, I would have killed it. I would have stamped it and fucking, killed it because I have to protect my, my people. But yeah, it was an example of if I was not confident and would not have done anything, that could have potentially been a very dangerous situation. So put a lot of emphasis on people, I guess, on the necessity of knowing how to fight. I think it's something that we should, especially as men, that we should all have. Because, and I mean, you could tell me if I'm wrong, Christina, you would feel more comfortable around a strong, capable man that can fight and actually protect you. I guess a situation arising that would end in a physical altercation is not very likely, but it can happen. And you will feel more comfortable with someone that you feel at least can handle that, as opposed to someone that couldn't.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I agree that with you on that aspect, and I agree with you that men should learn how to fight because less fights do break out. Literally, like an example with that what you just said, where men who know how to fight don't. This, same grouping of men. So the owner of the dojo and a couple of the other black belts that teach in the school ended up, they also play in a band. They play in a Grateful Dead cover band. And they were doing a show one time. And they had a substitute drummer in and somebody started this. It was this whole big fight ended up breaking out. They didn't step in to stop anything from happening. The bouncers came in at the bar to step in and stop the fight happening between this other guy and one of the guests that was there and stuff like that. Like none of the fights broke out against the bandmates, but the one substitute drummer they had gotten to a fight with a person in the bar. And when the bouncer found out, like, why you're all black belts and nobody did a thing, like, why did you not do anything? They're like, it was not necessary. You had it. There was no reason for me to get that involved because this was absolutely unwarranted because it was between two weak people having a very stupid argument, fight. People weren't thinking clearly or anything of that sort. It's like, they're better off just taking it outside. We're not going to get involved. There was no reason for it. There was no reason for that act of violence. They chose to be reserved, and that there is strength in that. And I wholeheartedly agree. I feel safer around, and I've always gotten along better with men, but I feel safer around a bunch of big burly dudes that could kill me in 1 second, but don't because of that strength. So
Dangerous, but friend is far better than not being capable of danger, of being dangerous, so to say.
That's a whole Jordan Peterson thing.
I don't know if the statistic itself is true. I didn't read too much into it, but I saw somewhere that the way that men assume they can fight as opposed to how they can actually fight, there is a massive disparity in that. And I've seen fights break out in the street, from between two people that can't fight, and I will never not stop and watch because it is fucking hilarious to watch two untrained alcoholic people shove each other for 30 seconds before they need to stop and take a breather. It's hilarious. And it just gets you nowhere.
and that's why those black belts didn't get involved. It takes you nowhere.
It's gonna be
a fight in the street or anything like that. I really hope that I never have to. But I'd rather know how than not.
But Tour's gonna put me in that position because apparently we're gonna do a little boxing training when we visit each other.
Yeah, we'll do that next month.
He's gonna
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, like on the second. Yeah.
Yeah, Fridays are sparring.
But do you train?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I fight too. Amateur kickboxing, MMA. That's what I'm at. I did this morning, and I'm about to go again training tonight.
Very nice, very nice. I've done one cage fight, which was like a white collar thing, which we had training for, and then
Yeah, that's fun.
yeah. So I've had a little bit of sparring. For the most part, though, I just had my heavy bag. It doesn't always translate to a real life situation, but
Yeah, real life is different than the ring is a different. You know how it is. When you go in there in front of a crowd, you're not even yourself. It's just a different world. I much prefer street fights because then those are actually fun. You know, it just happens out of the blue, and you don't have a whole day of nerves and high blood pressure. That's just cool. But yeah, those can go bad too. That's why even someone who knows how to fight, people who know how to fight know the reality of violence. And yeah, a big, almost pro fighter can be like knocked out by a smaller guy, or a knife can get pulled out. Like, no, I'd rather avoid that. It's not necessary.
yeah, when I train, I don't really train for like competition or sport or whatnot. So you won't see me throwing like fancy back fists or whatever. I just drill the things that I know would help me the most in a fight. One of which
Yeah, yeah.
there's the knee stomp kick. So you stomp on someone's stomp someone's knee. Train that a lot because I know that if I've drilled that 1,000 times, while I might not have practiced it 1,000 times against someone, I know I can do that. So if the situation arises,
And doing it while tired too is important because a fight, 99% of people will be tired in 30 seconds. 1 minute, we'll all be breathing hard if it's full force.
yeah,
So it's just being able to do it 1,000 times, like repetition tired.
there was a Joe Rogan clip about that where he says that if somebody he talks about that in the case of if somebody wants to fight you in the street and they're not trained, if you can just move for a bit and keep your guard up and stop them from hitting you,
30 seconds.
yeah,
They're
30 seconds,
done.
at some point they're going to be tired and it's like, well, guess what? You know, I'm not as nice as the last person you tried this with. I'm gonna fuck you up now. Like,
That's
how I
that's right. That's right. Yeah, we'll get some training. We'll meet up one day. We'll get some training then. Yeah, we've been going for about an hour and a half. Is there a couple more questions or topic? Dustin, was there one you wanted to ask?
Yeah, there was actually quite a bit, but hearing you guys talk actually just keeps me back for a second. But when it comes to the strength and weak men and the fighting situation, like there's a lot that I was just kind of letting you guys talk, so I kind of jump in when I feel. But yes, definitely weak men constantly fall back on ego and they try to puff themselves up and typically would try to assert their dominance, especially over like a smaller person or a woman that they feel that they can sway their weight on. So that's definitely something you see a lot in weak men. And then strength, when it comes to strong men, typically the two strong guys that wouldn't interject, they know their limits. They know they can really actually hurt somebody. So it takes strength to have that reserve and to say, you know what, I'm gonna sit back, but if you tempt it, like there is no bark. It is strictly bite. And getting that right onto the topic of we're all animals, whether we believe it or not. When it comes to that situation you had where the guy wasn't paying attention and his dog came at you and such, dogs notice these sort of feelings. So if you had been timid or whatnot and kind of leered back, there's a huge possibility he could jump at you anyways. Just because he's like, oh, hey, I'm the alpha in this situation. By you holding your ground, standing your ground, you gave it that maybe I shouldn't jump that distance. And of
I
course,
was like, that guy's a bitch.
my response to that
right.
situation-
Well, and the same thing happens. Like, say you see a bear in the woods, they say don't run away because, hey, now we're in the chase mode, but also that dogs take on traits of the owners and vice versa. If you think about it, there's a reason why that dog was bitching out in that situation and the owner followed in suit. Like, you asserted your dominance. You were sure of yourself, and it takes strength to be a protector. So when you did that, not only did the owner, but the animal both understood that. And it's a basic instinct I feel we all have.
yes,
I did miss a little bit of what was going on before, but if I had some questions, basically it would be more along the business side of stuff. You say you're not a practicing pagan, so go ahead.
yeah, ask your question.
So when it gets into the business side of stuff, how would you feel, say, about a merger or something with someone that was more on the pagan animist side of stuff? I know you have a couple partners that you work with your art and such. So if I could ask a bit about that.
Well, yeah. If I was to start creating, content on the I guess more practicing side of paganism, then yeah, I would find someone who is an expert and I would work in it. Um, I guess I'm not so egotistical that I think I know it all. So I would find the right people to help, which is why I'm so fine with half my art on my feed being from someone else, because it's none of this would be possible if it was just me. I can't do it all as much as I would like to think I can. So yeah, I would absolutely work with someone and create some content on that, even if it's not something I do myself. At the end of the day, large majority of my audience is Norse pagan, and I owe it to them as a content creator to give them good information. So yeah.
Right. I definitely respect that you are well knowledged in the mythology and well studied when it comes to the runes. And I actually kind of liked your thought on the process of where the runes may have multiple meanings, and more than likely, yes, they did. You can kind of use them interchangeable to an extent along the same line of when people doing bind runes, picking 3 out of an entire paragraph of the lives of another is extremely hard to do. So yeah, I understand that you got to narrow it down some, what was this person? You can use, say, strength, honor, and integrity, and really kind of hone into something on that sort of a deal. The reason I asked that one about, say, partnerships and mergers is myself, I work directly with nature. And one of the things that I kind of have an issue, or not really an issue, but I kind of have a hard time with is expressing myself as a pagan and I guess taking from nature or altering what its natural state is. So how would you say feel about any of that sort of situation? I know our businesses are quite different on that.
So sorry, I might not have properly understood the question.
So with my business, with what I do, I work directly with nature, and I am of a pagan animist spiritualism. And I have people constantly that are obviously far removed from that. And in order to, I guess, respect the nature that I deal with, and as well as the client, I sometimes feel like maybe I shouldn't express my belief as much, be much more reserved. And then I've also had people that want to do business merger types with me who are far removed from the pagan side of it. How did you, I guess, feel about that?
Yes. I guess my answer to that would be that we really shouldn't be straying as far from nature as we are. We've kind of replaced sitting in the garden with sitting in front of a screen. What I would say to people is smoke a fucking joint and go watch something in nature. Go and watch ants coming out of an ant nest, or something like that. Or go into the woods and just listen, or go into your garden and look at the birds. So me and my partner have quickly realized, since we've moved in here, that there is a huge tree in the garden behind mine, or like across from mine. There is a family of magpies living in there, and we have watched that family expand. And now every time we come and sit in the garden, when we hear all the chittering and the yapping, we're looking at each other and we're like, that's 2 brothers like fighting over a scrap of food or something, And then we would put some food out and whatnot, and the little robins in our garden would get closer and closer to us, to the point where when we open the door, they're not scared of us. So I guess, and unless I'm interpreting this wrong, I think that I get straying too far from nature is just not good for us whatsoever. There is so many magnificent things going on out there that we ignore in favor of a screen. I think by just paying some attention, there is so much to see and think about, and it goes so deep. Like there's so many different intricacies. Like as I said, watching an ant's nest. I was with my friend a few weeks ago, and for whatever reason, the ants just started exploding out of the nest, and I just went and moved my chair and sat right over with them. And the way that they were just running around in a whirlpool, and the way that they, for such small, simple creatures, the way that they were moving around and they all had a job, it was magnificent to watch. It was more entertaining than any TV show, because I would pick one of them and I'm like, okay, what's your little journey, And he's just like, he'll walk a certain way and it's like, nope, wrong way, and he'll do something else. And it's just, and then we saw, I'm sorry if I'm yapping, but then we saw that there was another colony of red ants, very close to them. And the red ants came out and we were like, oh, yeah, it's about to go down. Like, and then we saw that they were getting closer and closer, and one black ant started fighting the red ant. And then we were just smoking weed and just watching this, like, as though we were sat in front of the couch. It was super interesting. That's something that we would otherwise just completely ignore. We would step on them without realizing and kill half the fucking colony, and just as we're going to collect something from the end of the garden. So,
And that's the weed. We've all done that kind of stuff. It's like weird, but it's great. It's great. It stops and makes you pay attention to things that you wouldn't otherwise.
It's from the earth.
So I can't say actually that point there, like that's animal medicine. Like I'm kind of proud of you a little bit there, Connor. You're dipping a little bit more into shamanism than you realize. But that's true animal medicine. People will often come and be like, oh, I saw a feather. What does this mean? I saw a rabbit go by. I saw this. What do I know? Okay, first, no, there's no, like, you're not going to get from a book and you're going to have the symbology of the rabbit means this and that. True animal medicine comes from watching the behavior of the animal itself. What were they doing at that time? What kind of behavior was being portrayed? And then how are you using that medicine, that lesson, into your own life? So that's so hard for people to get, because they want this big magical answer from this textbook that's saying they saw a rabbit means they're gonna get married somewhere and have 5 million kids. It's like, yeah, rabbits reproduce and all that kind of stuff. But you're or I saw a feather. Is it God talking to me? No, it's not. Like, stop. People are crazy. But that's what you want. You learn from watching the animal itself. And yes, if it takes weed or whatever it is like that, or somebody like me who's got like a squirrel brain, we're like, oh, look at the ants or the butterfly. People don't stop to actually look at that. That is such a hard lesson for people to get. And I'm so glad that you just said that from not a spiritual perspective. Like at all. Like you just, bam.
And that was actually going to be kind of one of the next questions I was going to ask. When you observe nature and stuff like that, sometimes it's no big thing, whether it's the magpies in the tree or firing one up and having a look at these ants go to war. Do you ever use anything like that to kind of center yourself before creating any art pieces for others?
I wouldn't say to center myself. And I guess, again, I don't know.
Or I guess inspiration, right?
Yeah, well, maybe not specific inspiration for the art piece, but I guess you could call that spirituality. I just don't know the terms. But definitely, it's a big part of my life is just taking breaks from, I can't sit in front of the screen for 12 hours. So I like going and sitting in the garden and taking in the sunlight, which is good for you anyway. And just watching, just seeing if there's, anything in the bush back there, or just kind of watching the journey of, like a bird, or sometimes I'll just watch a bee and I'm kind of, I'll watch him go and take the pollen from a bunch of flowers. And I'm like, I wonder where he's going after this. I would say, you're going to love this one, Christina. I would say the most quote unquote magical experience I've ever had is I lived in the student house for a while, and I made it my mission to befriend this crow, because I heard how smart they are and how they'll bring you gifts. So the goblin side of my brain was like, I can trade peanuts for money, right? I can get this guy to go find me some money. And it never happened. But there was one time where I came and sat in the garden. I would always go and I would feed the birds. Every time I did my shopping, I would buy like 3 to 4 pounds worth of just nuts, come back, I would feed myself, I would feed the birds. And there was a time where I sat in the garden, had all these magpies in the garden, and they started to become comfortable around me. So they would, fly into the garden and they would just pick up the nuts and they wouldn't pay me no mind. And I remember one time they really noticed me. So there was one magpie and it was eating the food, and then it started looking at me and it flew away. And before I knew it, there was about 9 magpies in my garden, all completely centered on me, just kind of trying to figure out what I was doing. And I just kept still because I didn't want to scare them. But it was the fact that this guy went and got his friends to come and say hi. And they weren't just focused on food. They were very clearly like interested in me. I didn't want to scare them, but it was a very weird experience, because I was just sat there thinking to myself, like, I've made some friends here, and we don't. They're supposed to be terrified of me. I'm this big thing that will eat them, but no, they're friends with me. So yeah, it was very, very weird experience. But to answer your question, absolutely, not as specific inspiration for a piece of art, but whenever I finish a task, I take a break in the garden and then I finish another task, and then I take a break in the garden. So I won't like sit for an hour and eat lunch, but I'll take a 20-minute break. Maybe even I'll sit in the garden, I'll answer my messages, and then I'll put my phone down and I'll just watch. And then I'll pick it back up, answer the messages, and then I'll just put it down, watch, and I'll just see something. And ADHD brain maybe, but I'll just follow it. I'll follow a bee or I'll follow a bird or something. So yeah, or I'll count flowers.
Well, from a, I guess, non-animist background that you have or whatnot, that's pretty impressive, I guess, from our side of things. I know Crow would agree. It's more of like a recharging in nature, resetting the brain, and kind of so you don't get, I guess, bombarded with just the technical things that you do.
I'd probably call it animism. I'm not educated enough on it to say whether it is that or not. But also for
Well,
me, it doesn't need a label.
Right. Well, I'll never try to change your mind on any of that stuff. You do some great work. I've seen quite a bit of the little videos and then the artwork through your page. So yeah, basically I'm just glad to have had a second to hear what you have to say about those type of things, and proud to be a part of.
I think what you do is pretty cool too. I think we need more nature. I've lived in the center of the city. It's horrible. I now live near a massive country hills, and I wouldn't say I go walking there as much as my partner does, because I'm very much at the moment working all the time. But yeah, when we go for a walk, even if I am stressing about work, or even if at the time I don't want to be there because I just want to get the thing done that I need to get done because I'm stressed, it helps. It helps a lot, because you see so much random shit. We'll see like a bunny rabbit, and we'll just stop and we'll just watch the bunny rabbit, or we'll see the rays from the sun like coming into the forest, and we'll just stop and we'll just look, and it's like, wow, or we'll see a deer, and it's like, the fucking deer, So
It's a type of communion with it.
Yeah.
With nature, that is what I mean, not necessarily that particular animal or whatever.
I love how chaotic nature is as well. It's why it's so hard to replicate with art, because you're in your frame of vision. There are like 3,000 different types of plants and so many different shades of green, and it's so chaotic, but it works so well and it looks so well. Yeah, I've been trying to kind of bring that into my feed a bit here and there. I like taking photos in my garden, whether it be product photos or just anything that I'm doing. So I like to have that in there. And I think with the color scheme I have with my content, the natural color of nature complements my feed so very well. And that was one of the intentions from the start. If you go way back to the bottom of my feed, you'll see that I've been doing this here and there for a long time, because I love bringing that into it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's him that did our logo, and also all of his projects. He's involved in a whole ton of stuff. We'll maybe put a link to all your stuff in the video description where it is. I think we'll put it on YouTube, Spotify, I think like 14 others once we get that figured out. But yeah, that's good. Thanks so much for coming on today. And yeah, maybe we can have you on sometime in the future.
Definitely. I think when I actually have one of my books done, that would be wonderful, because I could sit here and show it to you and talk about things. Yeah, I think it's been wonderful.
Perfect. Like a launch episode. Yeah, we can do that.
Relaxed.
All right. Take care then. We'll speak soon.